Good evening, Rabotai. We're going to start tonight to talk about the remainder of the Haggadah of the Pesach, which is considered to be a very, very, very amazing night, very holy night, where, as we said, right, that all the evil forces, all the evil powers are totally shut down on that night, the first night of Pesach. So, because of that, a person can see a lot of spiritual clarity. He doesn't get fogged up. He doesn't get, his vision is very, very clear.
Right.
And he can see very, very good things. They say that what happens is like this, that Pesach is really the beginning of the holiday, the Rambam says. And the holiday is a very long holiday, according to Rambam. What does that mean? The first day of Pesach starts, and then it's going to be Wednesday night. And what happens is that we have 7 days of Pesach, and then we have one more day because we're in the diaspora. And then what happens is that we have the rest of the days until Shavuot. So altogether it's like 49 days. And the 50th day is Shavuot. So says the Rambam that all these days are considered like one long holiday, basically. Can you imagine? 50 days of holiday. That's what we have. So why is that significant? Because what happens is that the first night of Pesach is a very holy time, where the Jewish people were like totally freed and emancipated, and that means that the powers of holiness were very empowered, very endowed, and because of that there was clarity, there's a lot of holiness. So what happens is that a person gets to a very high level that night because of that. And now what happens is that we're starting to count the 49 days until Shavuot. Shavuot is the time that the Torah was given. So what does that mean? The timeline goes like this, right? The Jewish people left Mitzrayim on the night of Pesach. They were emancipated by God. And then, one day by day, they were building up more and more holiness. Because the first night comes like, the holiness comes in one big rush. And then, the rest of the time is like we're building up slowly to get to that level again. But this time it has to be done with effort. The first night is like a freebie, more like, You get it like very, very fast, like a big rush. And then the rest of the time you have to build it up and work on it. What does that mean? You have to work on your spiritual level, to build it up more and more, to build up your avodah. And also we're counting the Sfirat Omer. We're counting the Omer. What does that mean? That each day we count until Shavuot. 49 days until Shavuot, the 50th day, every day is counted. What's the reason why we're counting? There are several reasons for that. But one of the most important things is that we're trying to build up more and more spiritual energy. Each day has a different quality. So we're counting each day with its whole different qualities, and little by little we have to build up and become spiritually higher and higher and higher and higher and higher until the day of Shavuot where we receive the Torah. So we have to be ready for that. That's a day that you have to be very, very much ready to receive the Torah. You have to be able to accept the Torah. And that requires a certain amount of spiritual level. So what happens is that you have to build it up, and the person who doesn't count those, says the Zohar Kadosh, that if you don't count those 49 days and get to the 50th day, even if you missed one day, it's considered to be like you didn't catch the whole power of the surge, spiritual surge that comes during that time. So a person can't even miss one day, the counting of the Omer. Very, very important to count every day. When do we start counting? On the second day of Pesach. The first day, as we said, it's like a big surge of light, spiritual light, and then we're coming back down to earth. But now we have to build it up slowly, gradually. This time to earn it, not to get it for free. So each day to count, one more day. So what happens is that when you count, it makes you ready for the time of Shavuot, where you have to receive the Torah. If you don't count, says the Kadosh, the person is not ready to receive the Torah. Can you imagine? Because he missed one day, the whole thing is shot. That's what it says, right? So why do I tell you this? It's not really a discussion for this night, but what I'm saying is that the first night is something amazing because you're getting everything for free. It just comes, in a big rush. So you have to appreciate that. You have to take advantage of that. The first night of Pesach is a very holy time, where the forces of good, the forces of Kedusha, of holiness, are at their full strength. And the forces of evil are totally subjugated, totally knocked out. TKO, bah! That's it. Knocked down. First night of Pesach is a very, very, very holy time. So, because of that, we have to make sure that we do all these mitzvot the proper way. So, as we said, right, that last time we got up to the place where we were doing the meal. So, as we said, the last thing that a person should do when he finishes the meal, is what? He does the afikoman, right? What does that mean? That matzah that we broke, the beginning of the seder, we broke those pieces into two. The bigger slice, as we said, becomes the afikoman. Now we bring back the afikoman, and everybody should have a kazait of matzah, 27 grams, which is about half size of an egg, half an egg, right? That's the size. So a person should eat that much. Also, as we said, reclining, reclining, just eat that reclining. And what happens is that if he does that, once he does that, he eats the afikoman. What's the reason why we eat the afikoman, by the way? What's the reason why? We already ate the matzah at the beginning. We already did the mitzvah of matzah. The Torah commands us to eat unleavened bread that night. It's a commandment of the Torah. So then why eat it again? What did you miss that you have to eat it again? So you know what the answer is? The answer is because this signifies, it comes in the place of a different mitzvah that we used to do in the time of the Bet HaMikdash. In the time of the Bet HaMikdash, what we used to do is that we used to make a korban pesach, a sacrifice. It was a lamb, that was barbecued on the fire. And what happened was that the mitzvah was, after you have the meal and you're already satiated, nice and full, so now you would bring the korban pesach, the sacrifice of pesach, and you would eat that. That would be the last thing you eat. What's the reason why that a person should eat it when he's full already, satiated? He already ate a meal. So what's the point of it? So it's like, something, it should be, korban pesach, not something you eat because you're hungry. Something you eat because it's a mitzvah only, And the whole thing was, as we said, right, to mock the Egyptians, to make their God into a laughing stock. That we eat their God. That's the idea. And this is the reason why we were eating the korban pesach. So you have to do it when you're satiated. What does that mean? You're not doing it because of hunger. Just a display, disgrace for their God, their idols, the idols of the Egyptians. That's the reason why we did it. And this is the reason why the person has to do it at the end of the meal when he's already full. So now, since we don't have korban pesach, you cannot do it when you don't have Bet HaMikdash. We don't have the proper tools to do it. So what happens is that we eat the afikoman in place of the korban pesach. This is what we do. It comes in place of that. The rabbis made a decree like that this should come into the place of the korban pesach. So what we do is we eat that matzah. That's the last thing we eat. And since the Torah commands us regarding the korban pesach, that it should be the last thing you eat, and after you eat that, don't eat nothing else, don't taste anything else. So therefore, here also with the afikoman, the last thing you eat is the afikoman, and don't eat anything else after that. Don't taste anything else. So what does that mean? If you want to have dessert, let's say, right? You want to have some cake, you want to have some pudding, I don't know, God knows, whatever it is, right? You should have that before the afikoman. Because once you have the afikoman, no more dessert. That's the idea, right? So then what are we allowed to do? All we do is basically, we say Birkat Hamazon, we say grace after meals. But as we said, a person is allowed to have what? He's allowed to have like some soft drinks, some water, some coffee, some tea, Coca-Cola, soda, things like this. He's allowed to have. Even though the truth is, by the way, that there is a machloket, there's sort of a dispute amongst the poskim if you're allowed to have things like this. But the halacha is that you're allowed to have. So therefore, if a person wants to have a little sip of Coca-Cola afterwards, some Sprite, whatever it is, all these kinds of things, he's allowed to have. We talked, by the way, I posted a video this morning regarding the issue of citric acid. What does that mean? That these colas and all these drinks, soft drinks, a lot of them have citric acid. What's the issue with that? That's why a lot of people, they don't drink the regular Coca-Cola. They buy like a special kosher one for Pesach. Why do you need the Coca-Cola kosher for Pesach? There's chametz in there? In Coca-Cola? There's no chametz in Coca-Cola. But there's two issues over there, right? One thing is that in America they use corn syrup. Ashkenazim don't eat corn on Pesach because it's kitniot. It's legumes, right? Okay. So therefore the Ashkenazim need to have special Coca-Cola which is made from sugar, not with corn syrup. But we Sfardim, we do eat kitniot, we do eat corn. You have chadi over here, that's corn, right? Right here, you have it in front of your face, right? So since we do eat corn and we eat legumes, this is the reason why we're allowed to have also these sodas, For the Sfardim, there's no problem to have Coca-Cola, regular Coca-Cola, from all year round, with corn syrup, Sprite, all these kinds of drinks. There's no issue with them, because for us, the Sfardim, corn syrup is okay. No issue with that whatsoever. Ashkenazim, as you said, right, they do a special run with sugar this time of year. That's the idea. That's what they do. and they jack the prices up, to take advantage. You know how it is, right? Price gouging. People make money. You know how it is, right? So that's what happens. But the truth is that these sodas also have a different ingredient which is questionable. Besides the fact that they have corn syrup, they have also something which is called citric acid. Right? What is citric acid? Citric acid is it gives tartness to the taste of the food, so it shouldn't be too sweet. It's got to have that proper balance, tartness and sweetness. Otherwise, it doesn't have that tang. Too sweet. So this is the reason why they put citric acid, to add tartness, to break the taste of the sugar. It shouldn't be too sweet. Balanced out. So the problem is like this, right? In the old days, nowadays not so much, but in the old days, citric acid was made from chametz. It was made from wheat. They used to derive citric acid from wheat. This was a process they used to do, even though it's found, by the way, in like citrus juices. Citric acid. You'll find it in orange juice. You'll find it in lemon juice. All kinds of things like this. But you're not going to take it from there and put it into the soda. Why is that? Because it's too expensive. Fruit juice costs a lot of money. So it's much cheaper to derive it from wheat. This is the reason why they used to make it from wheat. But the problem is, wait a second, wheat is chametz, right? So this is the reason why a lot of people don't drink these sodas, because citric acid is made from chametz, it's made from wheat. But the truth is that what I posted on my video, you can see over there, I talked about the issue that there's no problem with that today. Why is that? Because there are several reasons. One is because it's chemically altered already. It's not the same chemical makeup that it was before. They do some kind of alteration, and also it's also rendered not edible throughout the process. Right, there is a point in the process where it's not edible, this substance already, and it's also a very, very small minority, so it gets nullified in 60th. That's another reason. If you look in the video, you'll see over there all these things brought down very clearly, delineated very clearly. So because of all these reasons, and there's also another reason, which is that nowadays citric acid is now made in a laboratory. Right, in other words, they have a chemical process, make a synthetic one. They don't make it from wheat so much anymore, like they used to. Because, what they want to do is basically, the companies, they want to save money, so they want to make it the cheapest way possible. You know what I mean? So the cheapest way possible is to make it synthetic. You don't have to use like real, grains, because grains cost money. You know how it is, right? Nothing is for free. So therefore, the cheapest way to make it is synthetic, so therefore that's why nowadays they're using synthetic. So because of all these reasons, you look in the video, you'll see that this is the reason why there's no problem with citric acid. So the truth is, because of that, all these sodas that we drink, Pepsi, Cola, the Pepsi, the Sprite, all these famous sodas that everybody drinks, there's no problem with them on Pesach, especially for Sephardim, as we said. Citric acid is not really a problem today, nowadays, in our times.
What about cookies and
So these things, there are special ones for Pesach. That's the idea, right? You got to go to the store, go to the Jewish store. Tomorrow I'm going, to Main Street. I'll be going over there, and I'm going to spend probably a good amount of money buying, these snacks. For Sephardim it's even better. Why? Because you can get like sweet cookies, which are made from flour, matzah ashira. Ashkenazim don't eat that stuff. They eat a different kind of cookies.
Yeah.
All kinds of different things.
I think that all of this stuff should be. I mean, I'm not the one for harsh rules,
right?
But you don't think it's a mockery to eat cookies?
You know what it is?
Chocolate covered matzah on Passover.
Our perception of Pesach, as we grew up as children, is like you've got to suffer, But the truth is that there's no mitzvah to suffer on Pesach. And eat that, right, because they didn't have, all these things. But now that we have all technology and we have all the, methods of production, so why suffer? It's kaidger. Pesach is a holiday. It's not to be a suffering time. So as we said, right, the point is we don't want to eat leavened things because this is the Yetzer Hara, this is the Satan. It's in the leaven. That's the idea, that we want to avoid. But we don't want to avoid enjoying good food. That we don't want to do. There's no mitzvah to avoid, you should have very good food on Pesach, the best food.
So
why?
I always thought Passover was to show solidarity for the people that didn't have much there. And
no, that's not really the reason, The reason is to avoid leaven. Because leaven is the symbol of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, So therefore a person wants to avoid at all costs these things, leavening. When it comes to these things, which are, just products, cookies and cakes, all kinds of things, which are made now, on a very high level, very good
so
stuff.
What's with the Ashkenazim?
So the Ashkenazim, they have several limitations on Pesach. They're much more, by the way, stringent about several things. First thing, number one, according to their custom, they don't eat legumes. So corn for them, chadi, not allowed. Rice, they don't eat, right, on Pesach. Sephardim do eat rice. Most communities.
Yeah.
Some communities
Who
don't.
decreed this?
This was the Ashkenazim, their rabbis, decreed this several hundred years ago, not to eat legumes. And the reason is because they were using the same sacks to deliver wheat and rice.
Yeah, but
So
this is gone
sometimes
now.
it was getting mixed up.
Yeah.
Yeah?
This is not the case now. I mean,
Not the case now, absolutely. And this is the reason why, whoever doesn't have this custom like very, very strong, like the Ashkenazim do, the Ashkenazim took it on very strong, like a neder, like a vow, took it on very, very strong, this custom. But when it comes to other people who are not Ashkenazi, we don't have such a strong, neder like this, vow. So therefore, for us, there's no problem whatsoever to have legumes, whether it's rice, whether it's corn, whether it's peas, whether it's hummus, chickpeas, right? All these things for us, tahina, Ashkenazim don't eat, we do eat, right? That's the idea. So you go to the store, you buy, a kosher one with a good hechsher for Pesach, a Sephardi hechsher, and that's no problem. You're allowed to eat all these things, no limit, right? No limitation. The question also comes up, by the way, regarding, for the Georgians, because of the rice situation. If you're allowed to have rice. So I already told many times, several times, I told the people over here, even for Georgian Jews nowadays, even though in Georgia most places over there didn't eat rice on Pesach, some places did, by the way, but some places did not, most places did not. Nevertheless, now that we left Georgia already, so the custom doesn't go with us. It's not like a custom is not like a piece of baggage you take from one country to another. When you leave the country, you leave the customs behind. That's the way it is. Unless you're planning to go back there, I don't think we're planning to go back to Tbilisi, whatever, Kulashi, We're not planning to go back there, right? Achal Tziche, whatever it is, right? So what business do we have to keep the customs of Georgia? We're already gone from there. This is the way it is. This is the way it's brought down in the book Avkat Rochel, Ma'am Bet Yosef. He says over there, once you leave your country, and you go to a different country, now you have to keep the customs of that country, not the country that you left. The country that you left, that's it, you're gone. You're finished with it. Understand? So there's no prohibition anymore. Same thing with Moroccans, by the way, also, who left their country. And, Bukharians and Persians. All those customs that you left behind over there, you're not obligated to keep them anymore. You're not going back there unless you're going back there. There's something else, right? I personally, let's say, for instance, right, I'll tell you an interesting thing. By the way, I'm an example, but the truth is there's many people like me as well. What does that mean? I was in Israel for 19 years. Now I was here for 4 years, right? So now, what am I? Am I Georgian Jew? Am I Israeli Jew? Or am I American Jew? Right? And there's many people like me, going back and forth, shuttling here. What am I? Right? So what the truth is? The truth is that Georgia is already way, way back behind, right? Way back behind. There's nothing, I have no connection with Georgia. I left there when I was 7 years old. You know what I mean? I'm not going back there, believe me, I have no plans to go back there, So all the customs of Georgia, I already left them already a long time ago. According to halakha. But the question is like this, right? Okay, fine, Georgia I left. But now, I went to America, and then I went to Israel, and then I came back to America. So now what do I do? What am I? Am I a Georgian Jew? Am I Israeli Jew? Or am I American Jew? This is the question, right? So there's a Marsh Dam, one of the big poskim. He writes something similar to this regarding the issue of there was a city in Greece called Salonika, Saloniki, right? So there was a big Jewish community over there that came from many different places. They assembled into one place and made like a big community, but every community has their own customs, Moroccans, Tunisians, and all kinds of people over there. Ashkenazim, Sephardim, all kinds of things going on over there. So the question is, when you have every block different custom, which custom is the custom of the place of the country, which is considered to be the custom of the. In other words, if I move there, I came. What do I have to keep? For which custom should I keep? So he says over there like this. What he says is that since the country, the city, it was really a city, right? Is divided up into several different customs. Each place keeps their own custom. Each synagogue, each community. So he says, therefore, none of them are really obligatory. There's no obligation to keep any of these customs. Why? Because it's not uniform. Customs are only obligation where it's uniform for everybody. That's the way it is for everybody. And therefore, in a case like that, you have to keep the custom. You cannot You cannot be poresh min hatzibur. You cannot leave the customs of the town. But since there's no uniform custom, here also in New York City we have the same problem, right? There's 1,000 different communities, each with their different customs. So therefore, there is no custom of New York. There is no custom of America. It's a whole big mixmash, big mixed bag, smorgasbord. So then, what does a person do in a case like that? So the truth is, right, that we have two different communities, basically, in every place, most places today. We have Sephardim, we have Ashkenazim. So if you are Sephardi, you have to keep like the Sephardi, customs. What does that mean? Shulchan Aruch. If you're Ashkenazi, you have to keep the customs of the Ramah, which is the customs of the Ashkenazim. But besides that, all those customs which they have in communities, this community, that community, you're not obligated to keep those customs because they're not uniform for everybody. That's what the Marshdam says. So therefore, according to this, what do we see from there? That if you're a Sephardi, you should do the minhag of the Sephardim. And if you're Ashkenazi, you do the minhag of the Ashkenazim. That's the idea. So everyone does according to their minhag of their forefathers, you understand? But when it comes to these local minhagim, customs, Georgia and Paras and Persia and Bukhara, we left those places already. We have no business with them. So we're not obligated to keep these unless you plan to go back. So now the question is, what about me? What am I? Am I here temporarily or am I here permanently? The truth is, I'm planning to go back. I don't want to stay here.
Right.
I'm like, I'm against my will over here. So what does that mean? That the truth is, I'm like considered to be like Israeli Jew.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to keep the minhagim of Israel.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Sephardi Israeli.
I didn't know you were planning to go back.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you think I want to stay here? It's like for me, this is like temporary suicide. Temporary insanity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, etigulimax.
Really?
Of course. What are you kidding me?
You never told me that?
No, what are you kidding me? You think I want to stay here? Every day that I'm here, it's for me. It's like a tiny tragedy. Because Baruch Hashem, at least I'm helping some people to learn something.
Yeah.
But I want to go back any day. Every day I want to go back. So what am I telling you is that since I'm planning to go back, really the truth is I'm Israeli. So what am I? Israeli Sephardi. I have no connection with Georgia. I have no connection. The truth is also with the customs of America because I'm planning to go back. So therefore, that's pretty much what it is. But so now you understand a little bit, right, how it works. So getting back to what we were talking about, right? That so therefore the rule is that if you're Sephardi, all these communities, by the way, they're basically Sephardi. What does that mean? Persians, Bukharians, Georgians, Moroccans, Iraqis, right? They're all considered to be Sephardi. Why is that? Because they keep they pray from a Sephardi Siddur, and they read the Torah the Sephardi way. Everything they do is Sephardi, There are some Ashkenazi minhagim that are mixed in to these communities. Why is that? Because there were certain rabbis studying the yeshivot of the Ashkenazim, and they brought in some things, imported. But the truth is, they made a big mistake what they did, these rabbis. To import all kinds of Ashkenazi minhagim into the community. It was a big mistake. And it should be reverted, by the way. It should be turned back. The Chazir Taral Yoshna, it should be turned back and reverted. Everything should be Sephardi. Because when you're a Sephardi, you should do everything Sephardi. Says the Chida, Maran Chida, in his book Machazik Bracha, he says over there that if a Sephardi does like Ashkenazim, a custom, he needs for that kapara on Yom Kippur. Kaparat Yudeva. Why is that? Because he did like the wrong minhag according to his his custom. That's the idea, So therefore, a person has to be careful about that. So in most places today, in most countries, America, Israel, even in Russia, by the way, there's two different communities. There's the Ashkenazi community, there's a Sephardi community. There's also a Sephardi community in Moscow today. Did you know that? Several shuls over there, Sephardi. So what does that mean? That there is no custom, unique, custom in any of these places. It's all mixed bag. So therefore, if you're a Sephardi, you keep Sephardi. If you're Ashkenazi, you keep Sephardi, Ashkenazi. That's the idea. That's the way it works. Whether you're in Moscow, whether you're in Tel Aviv, whether you're in Jerusalem, whether you're in New York City or California or Los Angeles, doesn't make any difference. It's all the same. That's the way it works. So therefore, we eat legumes, and the Ashkenazim don't eat legumes. That's the idea, So that means that for us, we can have rice on Pesach, no problem with that, or chadi, It's the same thing, no difference. They cannot have rice, they cannot have chadi, you can have the corn, cannot have all these things. Ashkenazim have much more limitations. So why do I tell you this? This is one of the differences between Ashkenazim and Sephardim. There's also another difference. You know what it is? The difference is that The Sfardim, they eat matzah which was made with fruit juice or wine, which is sweet matzah. You can make like also cookies out of that. So that's why we have in the store. You'll see, right? It's only for Sfardim, this cookie. Why is that? Because it was made with sweet matzah, with matzah shira, and with kitniot, all kinds of things, like legumes. So therefore, these legume cookies and sweet matzah cookies, they're only for Sfardim. They're not for Ashkenazim. The Ashkenazim, what they do is they have a different technique, how to make sweet cookies and sweet cakes. You know what they do? In the old days, by the way, they used to make macaroons. That's all they had, the Ashkenazim, which is like made out of what is that? What's that called? The macaroons are made from that fruit, that big fruit. It's like a big thing. It's hard. You know what I'm talking about? Whatever it is, I don't remember the name of it. But it's like a white, big hard thing.
Chomsh.
You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, the point is, right, that they eat these macaroons, which is made out of that big thing, right? It's like a sweet kind of thing. And that's all they had in the old days. But now they made a different technique, which is what? What they do is that they take matzah flour. They make matzot first, right? They grind it up again, make it into flour, and then put all kinds of sweet things, and they knead it. They make it into a cake. That's how the Ashkenazim they do. They make the sweet stuff. That's also, for us, it's also good. We can do either way, right? You can eat that stuff, and their stuff we can have, and we can have our stuff as well. So this is the reason why for the Sfardim it's much easier to do Pesach, because most things are permitted. The only thing which is forbidden is like leavened products. Basically, cookies which are leavened. This has to be made from matzah flour. That's the idea, right? Or legumes. There's a lot of cookies which are made also out of potatoes. It's also another technique that they use. They grind potato into flour, make it sweet, knead it into sweet stuff, and they make also cookies from that as well. This is a different technique. There's all kinds of techniques today that you can, do all kinds of things. And Baruch Hashem, get them and eat them, enjoy. Coconuts. Oh yeah, my friend just here, get ready. Coconuts. That's what they're made of. The macaroons. The macaroons. My friend Sylvia just told me from Kansas. She sent me a note over here, right? I was talking about coconuts.
Oh, okay.
Right, the macaroons are made out of coconuts, and they're not really my cup of tea, what can I tell you? But that's what the Ashkenazim used to eat in the old days. They didn't have anything else. But now they have all kinds of techniques, like, forget about it. They make, sometimes the Pesach cookies are more delicious than the regular ones. It's unbelievable today what's going on. There's no limitation. There's no, until the end of the world you can eat whatever you want. There was also other limitations that they had in the old days, by the way. They wouldn't eat like dairy products also, because they were afraid maybe there's some chametz in there. Today we eat all the dairy products. Sour cream, cheese, cottage cheese. There's no issues with these things. As long as they're kosher, there's no chametz in them. There's no issues with all these things today. In the old days, they didn't eat any of that stuff. Things were much different. It's a different world. So getting back to what we said, right? That we talked about the issue of eating the afikoman. So once you eat the afikoman, now all you can do is drink some soft drinks, some tea and coffee, some water. That's about it. Otherwise, you're done, right? So now, what's the next part of the Haggadah? You're pretty much done, basically, now at this point. But there's still more to do. What does that mean? There's a couple more stages. Number one is you do Birkat HaMazon, grace after meals, which is a blessing you do after you have a meal. But that grace after meals, you have to make it on the third cup of wine. We had 2 cups of wine ready, as it is. So now we're up to the third cup. So what happens is that we fill up the third cup of wine. Again, right? We fill up. As we said, right? People do it for each other. As a custom of to be free, right? To be a free man, to be emancipated, to be noble, right? All kinds of things like this. The people do it for each other. They fill it up, they put some water in there, 3 drops of water. Now they say Birkat HaMazon, holding the cup of wine in your hand. That's the way it's done, right? So what happens is that you hold it in your hand, and you say Birkat HaMazon, and then once you finish Birkat HaMazon, what do? You say Baruch Atah Hashem, Savi Ma'anan, right? Savi Ma'anan. What does it mean by the way, Savi Ma'anan? What does that mean? Did you ever notice that people don't even know what it means? You know what I mean? Everybody says it, but nobody knows what it means. So it's an Aramaic, this Savi Ma'anan. The Sfardim say this. What does that mean? Everybody listen, everybody listen. Listen to my blessing. Savri means listen, pay attention. Maranan means my masters, my friend, Pay attention, my friend. That's the idea, right? Savri Maranan, Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, borei pri hagefen. So what we do is we recline to the left again, and we drink the third cup of wine now, right? That already makes you pretty like you're sloshed. If you're drinking real wine, you're pretty much gone now, right? After 3 cups of wine, you're pretty much sloshed. If you're having grape juice, you're okay still. You're okay. If you're having diluted, like weak wine, like more like light wine. So you drink that, and then you're not finished yet. The Haggadah is finished, but now you have to do the Hallel, right? What is the Hallel? It's a praises to Hashem. We praise Hashem because this was the time that we were emancipated from the Mitzrayim at midnight. Right around right now, right before midnight. This is the time. So therefore, we have to say Hallel, and it's a long Hallel. It has a lot of passages over there, and we sing it together. Or one says, everybody listens. So what happens is that we say the whole Hallel. It takes about 5-10 minutes to finish the whole Hallel until the end, and then before we start the Hallel, though, what do we do? We fill up the 4th cup of wine, because now we're going to have the 4th cup also. 4 cups if they're together, right? So what happens is that now the 4th cup is filled up, and we're saying the Hallel. So once we finish the Hallel, we finish all the blessings of the Hallel, everything, and then we lean again to the left side and have the 4th cup. So this is the last cup that we have. There's also a difference between Ashkenazim and Sephardim when it comes to these 4 cups of wine. What's the difference? The Ashkenazim, for each cup of wine, they make one bracha, a separate bracha. Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, borei pri hagefen. They say hagefen, right? Ashkenazim, hagefen. We say hagefen. Same thing. Different grammar, right? So what happens is that they say for each one. But we only make the borei pri hagefen for 2 of these cups. Which one is that? The Kiddush, and after Birkat HaMazon, after grace after meals. We say the borei pri hagefen. But all the other 2 cups, the one after the Hallel, and then the one that comes before the meal, for that we don't say borei pri hagefen, because it's already covered by the one we said before. So this is what happens. So we only make 2 brachot, or 2 blessings for the wine. Ashkenazim make 4. This is also one of the differences between Ashkenazim and Sephardim. Each one has to do according to his custom, right? As we very important to keep your customs, as we said. It's a very important thing to distinguish yourself to what you are. So what happens is like this, right? That now, once we read the 4th cup, we drink the 4th cup. Now you should be already totally sloshed at this point, right? Reclining, you drink the 4th cup. As we said, right? If you got to recline, you have to go back and drink another one. So make sure you recline, right? Otherwise, you're going to be really, really sloshed, right? You're going to be drinking 8 cups instead of 4. That's the idea, right? Make sure you're reclining to the left side, and then you drink the 4th cup. So then what happens after that? You're pretty much done. But there's also another step, which is nirtzah, right? Nirtzah. What is nirtzah? Nirtzah is more like an optional part of the Haggadah. It's not really such an obligation. So what is that? We're talking about the songs, that they sing, Chad Gadya, Dai, 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 all these kinds of songs, they sing in the end. And these songs are considered to be, by the way, very holy, They say, according to the Kabbalah, even though they sound like very simplistic, like very primitive, you're talking about goats and all kinds of things, right? But they have very deep meanings inside of them. So the truth is that if a person can say them, very good to do so. It's not really an obligation so much. And if a person is still awake, he still can hold his head up to try to say the nirtzah. You know what it is? My kids get me into it, My kids will get me in. They like to do it. So I join them, You know what it is, right? Somebody has to inspire me. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, you need inspiration for that kind of stuff.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So we sing all these songs, right? אחד אמהות לנו חמישה חומשי תורה, 4 אמהות, 3 אבות, 2 לוחות דוד, אחד אלוקינו. We sing all these songs, nice, very nice. They're very, very nice things. So we're praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the end of it. That He took us out of Mitzrayim, that He saved us. Mm-hmm. And as we said, right, that when you're done with all this, it should be still not midnight, right? If you're done before midnight, which is about 1 o'clock in the morning, a couple of minutes before that, in New York time, each place has to check according to their calendar, according to their horizon, right? I'm not talking about Kansas, right? Sylvia is listening to us. I'm not talking about Kansas over there. They have to check over there. What time is midnight? What does that mean? According to halakha, it's midnight according to halakha, not according to the standard calendar, the standard the clock. I'm not talking about that. It's a little bit after that, right? Midnight. So what happens is that before midnight, a person should be finished with everything. That's the idea, you know. That's the way it works. Baruch Hashem, you know, now if a person wants to know all these times according to halakha when they are, there's an app. There's apps. You can go into also websites. You go in, and they tell you what time is midnight, and you punch in where you live. Like you live in a certain place, you know, Omaha, you know, all kinds of places, you know, Tel Aviv. You live in Haifa, wherever it is that you live, anywhere in the world. They have a program. You just punch it in, and they tell you exactly what time is midnight in your place. It's unbelievable, right? So if you can do that, to get into one of these apps, they'll tell you exactly what each time is. So a person should be done with everything before midnight. That's the best thing, right? If you did that, very, very praiseworthy. And the second night, as we said, also should be the same thing. Try to do everything carbon copy, right? From A to Z, as we said. No difference between the first night and the second night. Sometimes the second night goes faster. Why is that? Because people are not so, enthusiastic as well. Or sometimes it could be just the opposite, right? On the second night, maybe it could go a little bit slower because people want to do more like extrapolation, interpolation, all kinds of things, all kinds of explanations, all kinds of new ideas. Talk a bit more deep about these things, whatever. But depending on the mood that you're in, that's the idea, right? So once you finish that, you're done with the Haggadah, right? So that's pretty much the whole from A to Z, right? We covered pretty much the whole thing. So as we said, once a person is done with all that, nothing he can eat afterwards, right? If he wants to have, let's say, a snack afterwards, so decides all of a sudden, I feel like I want to have something, a snack. No, once you had the afikoman, you have to go to sleep like that. Nothing afterwards, right? Even though you already finished the Haggadah, go to sleep. The last thing that you tasted was afikoman. The only thing, as we said, you can have is a drink, right? Coffee, tea, soda, water, things like this. You're allowed to have. All the other things we're not allowed to have. That's the idea. So once you're done with that, you're finished. As we said, that even though the Haggadah is pretty much finished now, but it is praiseworthy for a person who has energy to talk more about what happened, how we came out of Mitzrayim, and all the interesting stories that are told over in the Midrashim, that are told over in the Talmud, all the afflictions and all these salvations, all kinds of things like this, to talk about this and get into the depths of it until the morning. If a person can do until the morning, till he goes to pray Shachrit in the morning and Musaf, if he can do that, very praiseworthy. Maybe we should try. Very nether, right? It's a good idea. Sometimes in this time of year, it can be pretty easy to do that. Why? Because the sun rises very early now. Like 6:30, the sun rises. A little bit later than that in New York area. So a person can actually pull this off. Can you imagine? That he can do all night like this, a couple of hours afterwards, and go until the morning, and then pray, and then he can sleep afterward. After he finishes the prayers, Shachrit and Musaf, he can pray afterwards. Also, I want to remind you another thing, which is that tonight, now, it's already also you can do an interesting mitzvah tonight, very important mitzvah as well. So it's Birkat HaLevana, right? To bless the blessing of the moon. If you can see the moon tonight, if the night is clear, tonight is a very good night to do it. You can still have time until Pesach to do it. But why wait, right? If you have a clear night tonight, do it tonight already. Go out and do Birkat HaLevana. Do women do Birkat HaLevana? No, it's only for men. The truth is, the women don't do it. If they want, they could do it, but they're not really commanded, right?
That's because they don't turn into werewolves. We do.
It's a good point, right? The truth is that they should do, even if they want to do it. Let's say, according to the Sephardi custom, they really shouldn't do it with a blessing, with the name of God, because since they're not commanded to do it, therefore they should do it without the name of God. Right? That's the idea. Whatever it is, the women don't usually do it. That's the idea. Right? It's a men's thing. So Birkat HaLevana can be already done tonight until the night of Pesach. Don't wait till the last minute, because if you do, sometimes you can lose it altogether. Why? Because then it can get cloudy. You have like cloudy nights, and you don't see the moon. So if you don't see it, you can't do it. That's the idea, right? So therefore, a person should try to do it early as possible. Mitzvah bal yadecha al tachamitzena. There's also some people have a custom to do Birkat HaLevana after Shabbat. So if you know that after Shabbat is going to be like a clear night, you can wait till after Shabbat as well. But that's only if you have intentions to do it for the right reasons. What does that mean? What's the right reason? Why does a person want to do Birkat HaLevana after Shabbat and not to do it tonight, let's say? What's the reason why? Because they say, right, there's something in the halakha brought down in Shulchan Aruch that it's good to do Birkat HaLevana after Shabbat. Why is that? Because you're dressed with a nice suit, Shabbos suit, and you're wearing a tie, and you have maybe some cologne on you, you smell good, so like you're in a Shabbat spirit, being dressed well and nice and very well groomed. So therefore, it's a mitzvah to say it like that, more than to say it like with grubby clothing, just the regular, your weekday clothing. That's the idea. This is the reason why. So the truth is, you can do it either way, right? If a person wants to do it tonight, it's also good to do it even though you're wearing your weekday clothes, because really the truth is that nowadays there's not really much of a difference between our weekday clothes, our Shabbat clothes. We're wearing jackets and slacks anyway. It's pretty much the same thing. So and also most of us don't put cologne anymore. We don't put perfume so much. So the point is that there's not really much to gain to wait after Shabbat. So therefore, if a person has a clear night, he should do it tonight already, not to wait, right? There's no reason to wait. So a person has to understand, right, that this is a very, very, very special time. People are talking about viruses and diseases, how many people died, this kind of thing. The truth is, right now, a person has to kind of tune out a little bit from this. This whole, even though it's very disastrous what's going on, very sad, very saddening. But a person has to say, listen, there's the time has to come. The person has to pay attention to the holiday. We have to get ready for a holiday now. There's no time to be sad, to be depressed, to be down, and down and out, crying. You have to know. By the way, the truth is, that in the month of Nisan, which is the time of redemption, we're not even allowed to cry. Because it's a time of redemption. It's a time of happiness. It's a time of Geulah, of salvation. So how can a person be crying at this time of year? You cannot do that. This is the reason why, in the month of Nisan, we don't go to the graveyard. Let's say the person has a yahrzeit, his parents or something, whatever, or his grandparents. He shouldn't go in the month of Nisan if the people are going to cry. Why is that? Because in the month of Nisan, you're not allowed to cry. You have to be happy. It's a month of salvation. So a person has to catch this wave now of this holiness. The Yetzer Hara, the Satan, came and brought all this distraction. Why is that? So we shouldn't concentrate on the holiday. To get us out of the mood of the holiday, which is very, very bad. Because if a person doesn't catch that wave, the Pesach holiday, gets distracted by all this nonsense that's going on, he's going to lose the holiness. And nothing will bring it back for him. You know what I mean? So a person has to be very, very careful now. And don't start talking about, doing the Haggada, by yourself. Because you're afraid of people, breathing on you, or sneezing on you. Give me a break, man. This is not the time now for that. If a person is not sick, there's no reason to suspect that he's sick. So you can do the Haggada together with your family, invite people to do it together. It should be something very, very good. It doesn't have to be super, super crowded either. But it should be, everybody who wants to come should be able to come. How can a person be left out of the Haggada because of some stupid, some virus, what's going on? You have to be afraid of the virus and not be afraid of God? That you're not going to keep the holiday properly? Not invite guests to the Haggada? This is the idea, So a person has to be very, 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 very determined now. It's a time, for real, to be resolute. And say, I'm going to do the holiday now. I'm going to forget about all these things. And because if not, if a person doesn't do it, right? How can a person lose this opportunity? That the Gaon of Vilna, he writes something interesting regarding this time of year, Pesach until Shavuot, as we said, right? The Rambam says this whole 50 days is all holiday. It's all one big holiday, one long holiday. So can you imagine how holy that is? That a person now has a chance to elevate himself and get ready for receiving the Torah. If he strengthens himself, he becomes higher, goes spiritually higher, devotes himself to doing the mitzvot properly. It says the Gaon Medina, at this time of year, if you didn't do that, by the way, and if you came out from the end of this holiday season the same as you came in other words, you didn't grow spiritually, he says that means you got nothing from it, zero. In other words, the whole point is that you should come out greater and bigger than you came in. Otherwise, it was worthless. Can you imagine how powerful that is? So a person has to come out, from this holidays strengthened, and powerful. He has to be, because he has to go through the whole summer and get through until Rosh Hashanah with the power of these holidays. As we said, and this is achieved largely, the first night is a gift, and then we have to start counting the Omer. If you don't count the Omer, you cannot achieve it, the growth, the spiritual growth. You have to count every day. Since we started talking about the issue of counting, right? The truth is, according to the Kabbalah, according to Zohar Kadosh, the issue of counting of the Omer is not really relevant to women. So therefore, according to the Kabbalah, right, women really should not count the Omer. The truth is that by the Ashkenazim, the women do count. And they count even with a blessing. They even make a blessing. But wait a second, but women are not obligated to count the Omer. Why is that? Because it's a mitzvah taseh she'az mangrama. It's a positive mitzvah, which is time bound. What does that mean? It's only a part of the year, a certain season of the year. So Tfilat HaOmer is a time bound mitzvah, it's a positive mitzvah, and women are not obligated. They're exempt from these things. So then why should they count? So the truth is, that they're doing it like it's an optional mitzvah. They're not obligated to do it. But optionally, if they want to get into it, they can get into it, and they're rewarded for that as an optional mitzvah, even though the reward is not as great as one who was commanded. The one who's commanded has more reward than the one who's doing it optionally. Why is that, by the way? You know why that is? Why does a person who is doing it as a command, why does he get more reward than a person who's than for a person who's optional? You know why? Because the person who's commanded, he has a yetzahara not to do it. Satan yedeba, The Satan comes to him, tells him, don't do it. Whatever you're commanded to do, the Satan tells you not to do it. But whatever you're not commanded to do, Satan leaves you alone. He doesn't care so much about it. You know why? Because it's not a big loss for him. Since you're not commanded anyway, there's no big loss. But a person who's commanded to do it, since he's going to get a great deal of reward by doing it, the Satan tries to trip him up not to do it. So the Yetzer Hara comes to a person who's commanded. And this is the reason why when a person who's not commanded does it, he gets less reward. This is the reason why. So this is the reason why the women are not really so shaykh, they're not really so obligated, and they're not really so relevant, they're not really so connected with the mitzvah of Sirat Omer. What does that mean? That they get this elevation through their husbands, through the men that are in their life. Their children, their husband, their father, whoever that happens to be in their life right now, depending on the stage of life that they're in, right? Their children, they're older, whatever it is, they get it through the men. So what does that mean? That the women are not so much really relevant to it, but according to Ashkenazim, they even bless. But you know what the question is, right? How can they bless? We just said, right, women are exempt from this mitzvah. So what's a blessing? Baruch atah Hashem, you commanded us, with blessing God, to count the Omer. So then, how can a woman say that, right? You commanded us. Who commanded you? God commanded you to count the Omer. He didn't command you. Then how can you say it's a lie? So therefore, the Rambam says that women are not allowed to say these brachot, these blessings. Whatever they were not commanded to do, they cannot bless on that. But the Ashkenazim, they do bless. You know why? Because they go according to Rabbeinu Tam, who was one of the big French rabbis, right? They go according to him. Rabbeinu Tam, you know what he says, right? He was a grandson of Rashi, Rabbeinu Tam. He says that even though women are not commanded to do these mitzvot, nevertheless they can still bless. Why is that? What's the reason why? Because when we say we commanded us, we're not talking about me in particular. We're talking about the nation as a whole. The nation as a whole, the Jewish people were commanded to do this mitzvah. Only the men, true. But as a whole, we were commanded. So therefore, even though you as a woman were not commanded, you can still say that Sivanu, that we were commanded. This is the idea, So this is the reason why the Ashkenazim, they do make the blessing. But the Sephardim are not allowed to do that. So what does that mean? Everybody should do according to their custom. We Sephardim, the women who want to count the Omer, they still want to count it, even though the Kabbalah says not to count it. So if they want to do like the Kabbalah and not count it, very, very good. Very, very praiseworthy. According to Kabbalah, they're not relevant to it. They're not connected to it. But according to the halakha, which says that the women are allowed to count if they want to, but they can count but without a blessing. But the Ashkenazim, the ladies, they count with a blessing. So everyone does according to his custom, right? That's the idea. Everyone does what they have to do. But the whole point is, says the Zohar Kadosh, that if a person doesn't count the Omer, he missed even one day, he comes to Shavuot, the receiving of the Torah, he's not ready, he's not pure, he's impure. He's not ready to receive the Torah. So therefore, a person has to make sure that he counts the Omer every night, without missing one night. What's the interesting thing, by the way? The interesting thing is like this, that if a person missed one day, you can still, if you missed one night, you can count it in the daytime as well, to make it up without a blessing. And then you can go on counting the next night. But if you missed the one night and also the day, you missed the whole day until the end of the day, until it became night, that's it. Now you cannot anymore make it up anymore, right? So now you have to count the rest of the days without a blessing because it's considered to be like the mitzvah was lost somewhat. That's the idea, So this is the reason why that a person has to be very careful. You know what the problem is? In our time, the problem is like this, for this mitzvah, counting the Omer. The problem is that we're not going to minyan now. We're not playing with the minyan. We're praying at home, So what happens is that when you're praying at home, you sometimes forget because it's not something that we are accustomed to do all the time, throughout the whole year, So because of that, what happens is that when you go to a minyan, everybody reminds each other, They're not going to forget. Somebody's going to remember. There's 10 people over there, 20 people, 30 people, 50 people. Somebody's going to remember. But when you have no minyan, so it's very, very likely that a person will forget. So therefore, really a person has to make some kind of a siman, a marker, not to forget, because now we're not praying with the minyan. Hopefully we'll go back to praying with the minyan. But since we're not, until this time, so a person has to make some kind of a siman, some kind of a sign, let's say with the alarm clock on his phone, to remind him to say the Omer. Otherwise he's going to forget. So a person, it's a mitzvah, bemet, a great mitzvah, that since we're not praying with the minyan, everybody should make some kind of a alarm, some kind of reminder on his phone. That's going to remind him, don't forget to count the Omer. There are even apps, by the way, that are done for this, apps that remind you to count the Omer. There's all kinds of things, so the person has to make sure that he does that. Why is that? Because if he doesn't count, even one day he missed, he's not ready to receive the Torah. Very bad. Can you imagine? He missed the boat. He missed the train, Very bad. So a person has to be very, very careful about that, to count the Omer, everything on time, starting the second night of Pesach. That's when we start. That's what Hashem. Kadosh Baruch Hu should give us a good, healthy, and happy holiday. All the sick people should be healed. All the suffering and the affliction and the death should go away from us, right? And we should go. It should go to the enemies of Hashem, the enemies of God, not to us. We shouldn't touch us, right? Those people, those enemies, the Hezbollah, Iran, Hamas. Should go over there to them. It should stay there for them, with them, right? Until they're all disposed of, as they say, right? Hashem should help us to be healthy and happy, faithful, observing the Torah, observing the mitzvot, and not being afraid. We cannot be afraid to do the mitzvot. The mitzvot were to protect us. Doing more mitzvot protects you. The less you do, the more vulnerable you are to all kinds of problems. Diseases, all kinds of things. I just noticed one thing, to be honest with you. I'm going to end with this, right? I don't want to keep you here too long, but what happens is, right, as I told you, as we mentioned before, when we started the classes, this thing started to happen, that when you do less mitzvot, you're more vulnerable. So, what I noticed is that when they stopped doing the minyanim, they closed down the minyanim, more people were dying, more people were getting sick. Just the opposite of what they wanted. And that's, I knew this was a danger about that. There was danger regarding that. That more people are going to now be vulnerable because of this situation. But besides that, that they were saying that a certain rabbi, Rabbi Kanievsky, a lot of people were saying that he made a ruling that they shouldn't play with the minyan, that they should play by themselves. So the truth is, I knew that wasn't true, this whole thing. There was no letter from him that he wrote not to play with the minyan. So what happened was that they were claiming, oh yeah, he said that, but the truth is that the reason why these rumors came out is because the government was threatening them, If you don't say that, we're going to, arrest people and put them in jail. The Nazis over there, the Zionist Nazi Amalek government, right? This is what they do. They scare people, they scare tactics, all kinds of things. So they're closing down everybody. So what happened was that my point was proved. How was it proved? Because they had cameras, on the house of Rabbi Kanievsky the other night, and they had it on the news, the Israeli news. What happened was that they had a minyan over there, So they came with the camera, these Amalek people, and they did a video of everything. People coming and making a minyan. So people were trying to say, right, according to Rabbi Kanievsky, they shouldn't be minyan. It wasn't true. I knew it wasn't true, right? And that's the way it is. They're being forced, Their arms are being twisted, the rabbis over there. They're threatening them. These people are Nazis, what can you do? They don't like to do mitzvot. They don't like to make the ceremonies, religious ceremonies. This is what protects us. They don't believe. What can I do? They're heretics. They're deniers. These people. Hashem should free us from the subjugation. By the way, we're still being subjugated. We're celebrating Pesach, but we're still under subjugation of the Erev, of the Amalek, of all these things. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should free us from them. And we should see the light at the end of the tunnel and be redeemed, finally, from all the forces of evil. They're trying to distract us now from keeping Pesach properly. That's what they're trying to do. To make all kinds of decrees on us, to make us distracted, to make us depressed. That we shouldn't be happy, we shouldn't be joyous, we shouldn't be rejoicing. Just the opposite we have to do. Ignore them altogether. Let them be in their woes, let them be down, let them be crying, let them be crying. The enemies of Hashem. We're not going to be crying, we're not going to be down, we're going to be celebrating the holiday, we're going to be joyous, we're going to be doing everything properly, right, with our families, and we're not going to be we're not going to be afraid to invite somebody because some viruses. Hashem, what kind of thing is this? You're not going to invite your family because you're afraid of a virus? What kind of thing is this? How can a person make a Pesach like that? What a disgrace. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Thank you for coming. Thank you.